From the tender age of 5, after her mother passed away, Xia could see ghosts. These spirits appeared in various terrifying forms, some with grotesquely long tongues, others with heads gruesomely split open, and some that looked inhuman. Despite their frightening appearances, Xia remained unafraid, knowing that fear was their true power, and without it, they could not harm her. At the film studio, crew members buzzed with admiration for Xia's latest performance. They marveled at her ability to perfect every scene in a single take, praising her as Korea's top actress. "Thank you," Xia responded with a humble smile, her thoughts drifting to her long journey. Starting her acting career at just 14, she had worked tirelessly, earning extravagant nicknames and a reputation as an all-time superstar. Each accolade was a testament to her relentless hard work and determination. In the midst of the bustling film studio, Xia's co-worker Ji-hyun approached her with gratitude in her eyes. Ji-hyun had just returned to Seoul after her grandmother's funeral and wanted to thank Xia personally for the beautiful flowers she had sent to the funeral parlor. Ji-hyun was touched, believing her grandmother would have loved them. Xia, always humble, had sent the flowers out of concern, especially considering Ji-hyun's recent streak of bad luck. Rumors had circulated about Xia's psychic abilities, and Ji-hyun marveled at how Xia seemed to know about her grandmother's passing. Xia, however, brushed off the praise with a nervous laugh, never fully acknowledging the extent of her unique gift. Internally, Xia reflected on the real reason for her gesture. Ji-hyun's grandmother's ghost had visited Xia's home, causing a commotion and making it impossible for her to sleep for days. Despite her busy filming schedule, Xia felt compelled to help. Additionally, Xia had a soft spot for Ji-hyun, a longtime co-worker. Ji-hyun shared that following Xia's advice, she had dug under the persimmon tree behind her grandmother's house and discovered a pot containing money and a letter, which turned out to be her inheritance. Outwardly, Xia feigned surprise and excitement, congratulating Ji-hyun on her good fortune. Internally, Xia knew the truth. Ji-hyun's grandmother had been insistent on making sure Xia relayed the message, driven by her concern for Ji-hyun, who had worked tirelessly to support her sibling due to their neglectful parents. Xia bid Ji-hyun farewell and headed to the green room. Ji-hyun wished her luck and promised to make her look even prettier the next day. As Xia walked away, she heard the voice of Ji-hyun's grandmother's ghost thanking her and asking her to continue looking after Ji-hyun. Stunned, Xia turned back but saw nothing, wondering if the spirit had finally moved on. "Goodbye, Granny," she tell. In the green room, Xia sat down, feeling the weight of her exhaustion. Reflecting on the recent events, she realized how tired she was now that one problem was solved. Deciding to take a nap, she hoped for a restful sleep, free from the recurring dream that plagued her. As she drifted off, she wondered why she kept dreaming about a girl dying in various foolish ways, always waking up immediately after the girl's death. Xia's nap was interrupted by a disturbing dream where she saw a pair of haunting eyes staring directly at her. Fear took hold as she struggled to wake up, realizing that this time she hadn't woken up immediately after the girl's death, as was usual. Trembling, she understood that seeing the girl's body was a troubling sign. Distressed, she told her co-worker she was heading to the set, ignoring the protest about having another hour. As she walked, the unsettling image of those sorrowful and resentful eyes haunted her, making her feel an unusual chill. As Xia arrived early on set, she was approached by a crew member who suggested going over the script. Grabbing the script, Xia began reading the scene where the male lead brings his secretary as his date to a birthday party, feeling relieved that it was an easy scene. Unbeknownst to her, the chandelier above was swinging abnormally. Onlookers grew concerned, murmuring about the erratic movement. Suddenly, the chandelier fell, crashing onto Xia. Panic erupted among the crew, with someone urgently calling for an ambulance as Xia lay trapped beneath the debris. In her final moments, Xia, disoriented, questioned what had happened. As she noticed her own soul hovering above her body, she felt a deep disappointment. Reflecting on her lifelong encounters with ghosts, she angrily cursed them for now ending her life. In her despair, she realized the reality of their ability to cause harm. Suddenly, Xia sprang up in bed, completely bewildered. Her appearance was changed, and she felt perfectly fine. Confused, she touched her face and body, finding no bandages or injuries. She wondered if the chandelier incident had been nothing more than a vivid hallucination. Suddenly, Xia froze as she saw her reflection in the mirror. The face staring back at her was the same one she had seen in all her dreams. Just then, someone entered the room, demanding her attention for breakfast. Recognizing the voice, Xia realized it was Ravi Sorful. In shock, she stared at him, unable to comprehend the situation. Her identity had now changed to Camilla Sorful, daughter of Duke Sorful. As she tried to make sense of this new reality, she wondered if it was another dream. Ravi's impatience jolted her back to the moment, making her flinch as he urged her to join him. Camilla, now in her new identity, was irked by Ravi's bossy attitude. Realizing she had a perfect chance for some long-awaited revenge, she remembered Ravi's role as the scheming second son of Duke Sorful, who had used Camilla to try to kill his brother out of jealousy. As Ravi turned to walk away, Camilla seized the moment and gave him a hard smack. Ravi, stunned and confused, couldn't fathom what just happened. Camilla, seething with satisfaction, thought to herself how thrilling it was to finally get to hit the guy she had always wanted to. When Camilla and Ravi's mother married Duke Sorfel, Ravi became the Duke's second son. Although he had a talent for magic, it was overshadowed by his elder brother Ludville's exceptional abilities. Consumed by feelings of inadequacy, Ravi plotted Ludville's assassination and manipulated Camilla into joining his scheme. Camilla, now reflecting on the past, was enraged. She thought about how every time she witnessed her own death because of Ravi's schemes, it filled her with such anger that she had always wanted to smack him. Ravi, stunned by the sudden hit, demanded an explanation. Camilla, acting innocent with a teary expression, apologized, claiming she must have been dreaming. Internally, she wondered about Ravi's next move and mocked the idea of her being mistaken. Ravi assumed Camilla was half asleep and questioned if she had always been this strong. He told her to get dressed and come downstairs, frustrated by the delay. Camilla, seething, noted his newfound concern for punctuality and reflected that despite his efforts, he was still doomed to the same fate as Camilla. As Camilla followed Ravi, she pondered whether she was still dreaming. In her previous dreams, she had always observed events through Camilla's eyes but had never been able to act on her desires, such as hitting Ravi. She wondered if this new reality had something to do with the ghost that resembled her. Upon reaching the dining room, where Duke Sorfel was already seated, Camilla noticed Ludville's seat was empty. It seemed to be around the time of the Western Rebellion when Ludville returned as a victorious hero, exacerbating Ravi's inferiority complex. Camilla realized that if she couldn't wake up from this dream, she could be in serious trouble. Camilla glanced at Duke Sorfel, recalling how she had repeatedly died before his icy gaze. Determined to change the outcome, she prepared to act differently. When Duke pointed out her lateness, Ravi stammered an excuse, and Camilla smoothly apologized, attributing her tardiness to a troubled night's sleep. Ravi was shocked by her unexpected response. Duke Sorfel, noting her unusual behavior and speaking out during the meal, sensed something was amiss with Camilla. As a maid brought food to Camilla, she said, "Enjoy your meal, Lady Camilla," and then stepped away, chuckling. Camilla, aware of the maid's mocking, reflected on how she had been relentlessly harassed by the maids even during mealtimes. She thought, "Go ahead and laugh while you can. Your smiles won't last long." Camilla wondered if her meat was once again over-seasoned with salt or pepper, as had often been the case. Camilla decided to play a trick on the maid by offering her meal to the Duke. With a bright smile, she suggested he try the steak she had meticulously cut. The Duke accepted, though his initial pleasure turned to displeasure as he tasted the meat. Camilla, delighted by the unfolding plan, watched with satisfaction. Suddenly, she sprang from her chair, feigning distress. She cried out, pleading with the Duke not to eat the steak, and insisted on taking it back, her voice trembling with fox sorrow. Ravi, witnessing the scene, was left bewildered by her unexpected behavior. The Duke, with a stern expression, remarked that this wasn't Camilla's first encounter with such a meal. Camilla smirked, internally vowing to put an end to the mistreatment now that she could control the situation. The maid, visibly shaking, feared the Duke's impending wrath. Camilla prepared to reveal why Camilla had always barely eaten. As she feigned distress and started to explain, the Duke interrupted, stating they would discuss the matter later, once he dealt with those who had offended the family. The maid's frightened squeal confirmed her fear. Camilla, watching the Duke's ruthless reaction, thought with grim satisfaction that his fierce protection of the family name was just as she had expected. A week later, Camilla's anxiety grew as she questioned whether she was truly stuck in this new reality. She worried about being in an eternal sleep or a coma, and desperately hoped she was not permanently trapped. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Donna, Camilla's maid, entered, expressing concern about her lack of appetite. Camilla, with a forced laugh, downplayed her lack of hunger. Following the breakfast incident, the Duke had ordered the kitchen staff to handle her food more carefully, and the abusive servants had been dismissed without pay. Camilla now focused on one thing, waking up from this seemingly endless dream. Camilla, still struggling with the reality of her situation, told Donna she'd eat later. Donna, perplexed, pointed out that there had been so many leftovers that the head chef himself had come to see her. Camilla sighed, irritated by the constant attention. Reflecting on her week, Camilla noticed another difference from her dreams. Donna excitedly mentioned that the chef had brought her his prize pie. Meanwhile, the ghost of a disgruntled chef chastised the head chef for not considering the person eating his food. Donna hoped Camilla would enjoy the treat. The head chef confronted Camilla about the untouched food, particularly his pie. Frustrated, Camilla faced the chef's insistence that she finish the pie. Meanwhile, the ghost of a disgruntled chef scolded the head chef for his lack of consideration, criticizing the pie for missing a gram of cinnamon and failing to account for Camilla's dislike of apples. Exhausted and annoyed by the situation, Camilla couldn't comprehend why she was still seeing ghosts despite not using her own eyes. The entire ordeal left her both baffled and frustrated. The chef, reflecting on his passion for cooking, recalled how tasting his master's food had inspired him. His apple pie, a recipe cherished, was a symbol of his dedication. However, seeing Camilla's untouched plate, he was dismayed. He couldn't accept that she hadn't eaten his food. Frustrated, the chef wondered why Camilla, who wasn't even the Duke's real daughter, felt entitled to be so picky. He thought to himself, irritated, that she should just eat what was served to her. The chef, frustrated by Camilla's refusal to eat his food, declared he had specially made the apple pie for her, since she seemed to dislike his other dishes. Exhausted, Camilla felt overwhelmed by the situation. Internally, the chef felt that Camilla should be grateful for the opportunity to taste his culinary creations, insisting that he had poured his heart and soul into the pie. Meanwhile, the ghost of the late head chef, House Sorrel Farrell, angrily scolded the chef for his oversight, reminding him that Camilla hated apples. Camilla glanced at Farrell's ghost, reflecting on how she had dealt with many difficult people in the entertainment industry and wasn't easily bothered. But this ghost was relentless and wouldn't stop talking. Deciding to placate both the chef and the ghost, she agreed to try a bite. As soon as she tasted the apple pie, she dropped her spoon, finding it unappetizing and refusing to eat any more. The chef was shocked and couldn't believe her reaction, passionately defending his recipe. Camilla, echoing Farrell's critique, pointed out that it lacked a gram of cinnamon, leaving the chef confused and bewildered by her precise remark. Camilla berated the chef for lacking basic baking skills and failing to consider her tastes, calling the uneaten pie garbage. The chef froze, suddenly remembering his late master's similar advice. Panicking, he hurriedly excused himself. Camilla then glanced at Farrell's ghost, dismissing him. Farrell flinched, shocked that she could see and speak to him. Ignoring his reaction, Camilla, exhausted, announced she was going to sleep. Farrell, the ghost of the late head chef, hurriedly informed another ghost, Darren, the former butler of House Sorrel, that Camilla had spoken to him. Darren, skeptical but intrigued, reminded Farrell to maintain their roles even in death, while expressing doubt since Camilla had never acknowledged their presence before. Farrell insisted that they had made eye contact. Darren suggested they keep watch on her, noting that they had nothing but time on their hands. Farrell reluctantly agreed, and the two ghosts decided to pass the time with a game of chess, each eager to outdo the other. A few days later, Farrell and Darren watched as Camilla sat gloomily, pondering her situation. Despite her efforts, she hadn't found a way back to her own world and realized she needed to figure out how to survive in this one. Frustrated, she suddenly slammed the table with newfound determination, deciding to fix her reputation. Reflecting deeply, she remembered that in her dreams where Camilla didn't die due to Ravi's plans, her reputation was still tarnished by false accusations. Understanding she couldn't change Camilla's past actions, she resolved to start by winning over Duke Sorrel. Meanwhile, Farrell stared intently at Camilla, trying to get her attention. He was convinced she could hear him, but she ignored him, lost in thought about how to restore the family's reputation, which Camilla had tarnished. Farrell persisted, trying to make her look at him, but she remained focused on her plan, wishing she could have prevented past humiliations. Growing increasingly frustrated, Farrell squished his face, practically shouting at her. This finally made Camilla snap. She yelled at him, confirming she could see him and demanding he stop following her. Farrell, excited by her acknowledgement, exclaimed his triumph. Darren, in disbelief, asked if she could really see them. Camilla warned Farrell and Darren not to ask her for any favors or to fix anything for them, making it clear she wasn't interested. Despite her stern warning, the two ghosts ignored her completely. Farrell excitedly confirmed his suspicion, amazed that she could see and hear them. Darren, equally surprised, marveled at the newfound possibility. Annoyed by their behavior, Camilla realized they weren't listening to her at all. She worried that if she didn't fix her situation soon, she might end up as a ghost like them. Camilla, feeling exhausted, collapsed in frustration. Lamenting that she had no idea what Duke Sorrel liked, Darren, the former butler, offered his help, revealing that he had worked in the household even before the Duke was born. Farrell, the ghostly chef, added that he had also served the Duke since he was a boy, describing the challenges of cooking for him. Camilla, initially speechless, quickly accepted their offer, eager for any guidance they could provide. As Duke strolled through the garden, he marveled at how long it had been since he last visited. His attention was drawn to Camilla, who was humming a tune and picking flowers. Concerned, Duke wondered if she was about to ruin another flower bed, recalling how she had once destroyed a pristine rose garden. The thought of her potentially harming the delicate baby's breath flowers made him anxious. In a rush to prevent any damage, Duke hurried over, grabbing Camilla and demanding to know what she was doing. In the commotion, flowers tumbled from Camilla's hands, and she hurried to gather them from the ground. Duke, startled, called her name. Camilla looked up with teary, innocent eyes and explained she was picking flowers to decorate his room, knowing he liked baby's breath. Duke was taken aback, asking about her intentions. Camilla, with a bright smile, confirmed she was doing it for him, addressing him as father. Internally, she gleefully anticipated how her gesture would win him over, planning to become the best daughter ever in his eyes. Camilla once more played the innocent, her eyes filling with tears as she questioned if she had overstepped. Duke, seeing her distress, simply told her to do as she wished. Camilla's face lit up with joy as she eagerly promised to bring the flowers to him in a vase. Duke's mother had adored baby's breath, tending to the flower bed herself, which led Duke to develop a fondness for the flowers as well. Darren eagerly asked if Duke liked the flowers, and Camilla confirmed he did. She giggled, noting how his usual cold demeanor softened this time. Though rebuilding their relationship would take time, it was a promising start. With newfound confidence, Camilla moved on to her next plan. A week later, Duke Sorfel's office was busy as usual. Zector, the Duke's aide, proudly announced Lord Leadville's latest battlefield achievement and handed over the report. Duke, however, was distracted, staring blankly at a vase filled with Camilla's daily offering of baby's breath flowers. He reflected on how she had consistently brought in flowers each day. Curious about Camilla's well-being, Duke asked Zector if she was still not eating properly. Zector, flustered, promised to find out immediately. Just then, Reuben the butler entered with a food trolley, offering Duke some food, sensing he might be hungry. Reuben placed a bowl of soup in front of Duke Sorfel and stood by with a smile, urging him to enjoy it. As Duke took a spoonful, he was amazed by the familiar and delightful taste. It reminded him of the old days when Farrell's soup was a staple. Surprised, Duke asked if Gelid had finally learned how to replicate Farrell's recipe. Reuben, with a grin, revealed that it was not Gelid but Lady Camilla who had made the soup. Duke was astonished to learn that Camilla had prepared it. Gelid stood in disbelief, his eyes wide as he tasted the soup. The rich aroma, golden color, and exquisite flavor were unmistakably Farrell's. He was baffled by how Camilla had perfectly recreated it. When Camilla approached and asked about the soup, Gelid could hardly contain his astonishment. With a shrug, Camilla revealed that the secret to the soup was Farrell himself. Thanks to her newfound ability to interact with and be influenced by ghosts, she had been able to channel Farrell's expertise directly. Farrell's sudden death had left Gelid without the chance to learn the recipe, but Camilla had managed to bring it back to life. Camilla approached Gelid with a smirk, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Gelid, sweating and visibly anxious, flinched as Camilla reminded him of their earlier agreement. His previous arrogance was nowhere to be found as he struggled to fulfill the bet he had made. Earlier, Gelid had arrogantly dismissed Camilla's culinary skills, betting that her food would be subpar. He had insisted that if she managed to impress him, he would be forced to kneel or fulfill any other demand she made. Now, as he knelt before Camilla, the weight of his words bore down on him. Camilla sipped her tea with a satisfied smile, making Darren and Farrell uneasy. Darren, curious, asked if there was something she wanted to say, while Farrell, clearly worried, questioned her unsettling smile. Camilla, confident, finally spoke up. After more than 20 years with ghosts, she had learned a crucial lesson. They don't help out of kindness alone. She thanked them for their assistance in winning the Duke's favor with the soup and flowers, acknowledging that she would continue to need their help in the future. Camilla knew that to survive and improve Camilla's tarnished reputation, she could manage a few ghostly requests. With a determined grin, she asked Darren and Farrell what they wanted. The ghosts burst into laughter, leaving Camilla nervous and confused. Farrell finally revealed his simple desire: cooking. Camilla was surprised and puzzled, wondering if this meant he just wanted some food offerings. Farrell, bowing gratefully to Camilla, revealed that his final wish was simply to cook once more. Seeing someone enjoy his meal was all he desired. Camilla, though confused, accepted his thanks, realizing there was no point in pressing further. Darren similarly expressed his joy in using his knowledge to help House Sorfel, mentioning that even small acts like bringing flowers to the Duke's office fulfilled him. Camilla, feeling overwhelmed by their unexpected kindness, wondered why they were so unusually nice. Camilla realized that Farrell and Darren were deeply focused on making others happy, even in the afterlife. Understanding that they didn't have any specific wishes beyond that, she decided to go along with their help. With a respectful curtsy, she asked them to continue assisting her in the future, knowing their goodwill could be crucial for her. 10 days later, Gelid looked frustrated as he examined the beverages Camilla had made. His disbelief was evident as he questioned how she managed to perfect them. Camilla smirked confidently, knowing her nightly practice had paid off. Internally, Gelid marveled at her skill, wondering if she had inherited secret recipes from Farrell. He bit his lip in frustration, noting how Camilla moved around the kitchen like a seasoned professional. Tentatively, he asked about the drinks, and Camilla offered him one of the extras. Gelid, still stunned, thanked her, unable to hide his amazement. Gelid tasted the beverage Camilla made and was amazed by its flavor, though he couldn't replicate it himself. When Camilla asked for his opinion, he reluctantly admitted it wasn't bad, which annoyed her. Still proud, she teased him, offering to reveal her secret if he did something nice for her, like a back massage. Nervously, Gelid made a cute face and used baby talk to ask if that's what she meant. Shocked and slightly horrified, Camilla quickly told him to stop and drop the baby talk, clearly not expecting such a reaction. Reuben entered and asked if Camilla was ready. She replied, "Just a minute," as she added something to the beverages and handed them to Reuben with a thanks. Reuben took the beverages, acknowledging it was his pleasure. As he walked away, he glanced back to see Camilla teasing Geled, asking if his knees hurt. Despite the pain and disrespect, Geled laughed and said they were fine. Reuben giggled, impressed that Camilla had managed to humble the arrogant Gilad. He wondered what had caused Lady Camilla to become so entertaining and change so drastically recently. Reuben arrived at the Duke's office and knocked on the door, announcing his presence. The Duke invited him in, and Reuben revealed that Lady Camilla had sent refreshments for all the guests. The guests were astonished and impressed, praising the delicious treats and marveling at Camilla's culinary talent. One guest exclaimed how incredible it was, while another expressed envy over the Duke having such a thoughtful daughter. The Duke, feeling proud, shrugged and mentioned that he had told her not to bother, but she had insisted on sending the refreshments. Reuben couldn't help but think that the Duke had likely rescheduled the meeting to showcase Lady Camilla's cooking. As the guests sampled the refreshments, one tried to belittle Camilla, sarcastically noting his surprise and recalling her past mischief, suggesting she was trying to atone for the party incident. His companion, clearly annoyed by the remark, silently wished he would stop talking. The Duke's anger flared at the disrespectful guest's remarks. He sharply reminded the guest of his aversion to wine and declared that if the guest couldn't appreciate the dessert made with wine, he would eat it himself to avoid it going to waste. With a stern command, he instructed Reuben to bring the dessert to him. Reuben promptly followed the Duke's orders. As Camilla and Farrell walked down the hallway, Camilla eagerly asked about their plans for the next day's meal. Farrell revealed he had created a special sauce and was considering drizzling on canapes. Camilla was excited, curious whether they would be sweet or savory. Suddenly, Camilla spotted Ravi hiding and spying on her. She called out to him, causing Ravi to flinch. He stared at her nervously and asked seriously what she thought she was playing at. Camilla was taken aback, stammering that she wasn't playing at anything. Ravi confronted Camilla, questioning her sudden dedication to cooking every night and whether she thought it would make the Duke accept her as family. Camilla, taken aback, coolly responded that she was simply making food. Ravi's concern seemed strange to her, especially since they had never cared about each other before. Ravi, with a stern expression, warned that the Duke and the family wouldn't accept them. Camilla was shocked by his use of us and began to reflect that perhaps Ravi's concern was because her efforts reminded him of his own past attempts to gain acceptance. Ravi told Camilla to stop her efforts in the kitchen, claiming it was a waste of time. Camilla responded, acknowledging that she knew the Duke wasn't interested in them and wasn't trying to be accepted into the family. As Ravi tried to question her further, Camilla quickly made her excuse to leave, saying she was heading to bed. Despite Ravi's annoyance and demand for an explanation, Camilla paused to declare that her goal was simply to live a full life, not to gain family approval. Internally, she thought that family was not her priority. Her focus was on her own survival and fulfillment. As Camilla calmly sipped her tea, Darren and Farrell stared at her, causing her frustration to grow. She asked if they had something to say. Darren inquired about her comment to Lord Ravi the previous night, asking if she was ill. Camilla reflected that they wouldn't believe her if she said she knew she was going to die soon and was trying to prevent it. They might think she was crazy and leave her. So she acted up, saying it was only natural for all humans to want to live. Darren accepted this explanation and Farrell nodded in agreement. Camilla reflected that if these ghosts roamed freely around the manor, they might know where it was buried. She asked Darren and Farrell if they remembered the flower bed incident. Darren assured her she could ask anything. Camilla recalled the flower bed incident. To find a ring from her mother that some servants had hidden, Camilla had dug up and ruined a flower bed, leading to her confinement in the manor. At the time, she did make an excuse, so everyone thought she was being horrible for no reason. That's why the Duke came running when he saw her in the garden, thinking she was going to tear up his beloved baby's breath too. Camilla dug up the garden with a shovel, searching for the ring. She asked Darren if he was sure about the spot, and he confirmed it. Reflecting on the memories, Camilla felt annoyed every time she saw that scene in her dreams, frustrated by Camilla's actions. Finally, she found the ring. Farrell scolded her for not asking for their help initially, wondering why she pretended not to see them. Camilla excused herself, saying she was too upset at the time to notice them. Darren offered to help with her revenge, suggesting that as ghosts, they could make all sorts of things happen. Camilla, sweating, found the idea ominous and declined, saying she would handle it herself. She thanked them for telling her where the ring was. Internally, she seethed, realizing that it was the three of them who had started all this trouble. Outside Camilla's room, the three culprits, 2 maids and a male servant, waited nervously. One maid complained, wondering why she had summoned them. The other speculated that Camilla, now on good terms with the Duke, might yell at them. They scoff at the idea, one laughingly betting her earrings that Camilla would throw another fit and lose the Duke's favor again. The other joined in the laughter, echoing the sentiment. As they entered the room, the three of them were shocked and screamed because they saw Camilla on the ground, appearing lifeless. Terrified, one maid collapsed to the floor, stuttering in disbelief, asking if Camilla was dead. George, filled with panic, ordered someone to check quickly. The maid, creeping closer, noticed pills scattered around and suggested that Camilla might have taken her own life, feeling a chill of anxiety. She immediately demanded the door be locked, which George did. The room fell silent, and the three stood there petrified. Another maid, trembling, questioned if Camilla was really dead, to which George replied that he thought so. Suddenly, one of the maids noticed a letter on the floor. She picked it up, opened it, and began to read aloud. The letter, written by Camilla, addressed her father and everyone else. It explained that the reason she had dug up the rose bed last month was because George, Alice, and Annika had hidden a ring from her mother there. Camilla expressed her shame and bitterness at being mocked by her own servants and asked her father to seek revenge on her behalf. As Alice read the letter, fear gripped her. She gasped, realizing the gravity of the situation. Desperate, she urged the others to destroy the letter immediately, knowing that if it reached the Duke's hands, their lives would be in grave danger. Suddenly, Camilla's eyes flew open, and she spoke with a cold, mocking tone. "You guys really trust in your own luck, don't you?" Startled by her voice, the three servants froze in fear. Camilla's smirk grew as she continued, "Do you really think you'll always be lucky enough to find a suicide note before anyone else?" Alice stared in shock, unable to grasp the unfolding situation. Alice was in shock, screaming out in terror at the sight of Camilla alive. She feared that Camilla might be a ghost. Camilla grinned teasingly and asked if her act had been convincing. Alice, biting her lip in frustration, couldn't believe Camilla was mocking them. How dare she? Camilla then coolly hinted that it might not have been an act. Alice, bewildered and fearful, asked what she meant. Camilla explained that she had been visiting the kitchen every night recently. If she didn't show up at her usual time, someone would inevitably come looking for her and find her dead with a note in her hand. Having fooled them, she was confident she could deceive anyone else just as easily. Alice, frustrated and terrified, yelled at Camilla, accusing her of trying to blackmail them. Camilla calmly responded that blackmail was something you did if you wanted something from someone. She then moved closer to Alice, her tone turning ominous, saying that you wouldn't blackmail a bug, you would just step on it. She added that she couldn't tolerate their buzzing anymore and questioned what she should do with them. George and Annika, trembling with fear, joined Alice in kneeling before Camilla, begging for forgiveness and promising they wouldn't repeat their actions. Camilla, maintaining her calm demeanor, simply agreed, stating that of course they wouldn't. Camilla beamed, asking if they knew what to do now. Alice, anxious and unsure, asked what she meant. Camilla sternly instructed them to go out and find the ring they had stolen from her. The three of them dashed out of the room and headed to the garden to search for the ring. As they left, Camilla sighed, reflecting on how playing the villainess was a great way to relieve stress, even though it was exhausting. Camilla glanced back at Darren and Farrell, who were both looking at her with surprise. Darren commented on how surprising her act was. Farrell asked if she had really just been acting. Camilla revealed that she once played a villainess so convincingly that she won an acting award over the female lead. Farrell and Darren were confused, wondering if such awards really existed. Camilla assured them they did. Darren then pointed out that she already had the ring, so why did she send the servants to find it? Camilla smirked and sarcastically replied that it was only polite to give as much as you've received. Camilla thought to herself how satisfying it was that George, Annika, and Alice were now experiencing the same frustration she had. They would dig up an empty rose bed and be called crazy, just like she was. Meanwhile, in the garden, George, Annika, and Alice were frantically digging, terrified of Camilla's wrath but unable to find the ring. Alice, sobbing, wondered if someone had already dug it up and sold it, though she doubted anyone would be that foolish. At that moment, Reuben arrived and asked what they were doing. The three servants flinched in fear, unsure how to explain themselves. Reuben explained the situation to the Duke, who slammed the table in anger upon hearing that the servants had stolen Camilla's mother's ring. Reuben confirmed that this was why Camilla had dug up the garden, trying to find it. The Duke was frustrated with himself, reflecting that if Camilla had just talked to him, he wouldn't have been so angry with her. He couldn't understand why she hadn't said anything. The Duke then ordered Reuben to call for Camilla. As he waited, he thought about how natural it was for her to feel uncomfortable around her stepfather, especially given his past behavior. The realization that his daughter had been ridiculed by the servants left him deeply troubled. He wondered what kind of treatment she had been enduring in his house all this time. Camilla entered the Duke's office, her thoughts already brimming with annoyance, wondering if Ravi had stirred up trouble again. The Duke, visibly distressed, addressed her with unexpected concern. He asked why she hadn't told him about losing her mother's ring. Camilla, taken aback, was surprised by his emotional response. As she looked at the Duke's troubled face, she wondered why he seemed so upset. It was a stark contrast to the usual disbelief he had shown toward her. She was puzzled by his sudden shift in attitude. The Duke, visibly agitated, told her she should have confided in him. Camilla, reflecting on his sudden empathy, was taken aback. She had seen him coldly dismiss Camilla many times and knew their relationship wasn't close enough for such concern. Camilla, acting upset, tearfully apologized, saying she hadn't wanted to burden him with more worries and had tried to handle things herself. The Duke, however, insisted she had nothing to apologize for and pointed out that it was someone else who should be making amends. The Duke, with a serious expression, insisted that Camilla come to him first if anything went wrong from now on. Camilla, dazed, wondered at the unexpected affection in his gaze. She had only hoped to gain his favor enough to avoid danger, but now worried he might make it difficult for her to escape if needed. Camilla, busy examining a map, was interrupted by Farrell and Darren. When they asked about her activity, she casually mentioned she was planning her escape route. Puzzled, Farrell asked for clarification, but Camilla only hinted at her intentions. Internally, Camilla reflected on her situation. She hoped to resolve all issues so she wouldn't need to flee, but uncertainty remained. With Ravi potentially causing trouble and Leadville Sorfel, the Duke's eldest son, returning soon, she knew she needed a backup plan. The dynamics were about to shift, and she had to stay vigilant. Donna entered the room to inform Camilla that the Duke had requested her presence for tea. Camilla agreed, reflecting on how the Duke's repeated invitations for tea might indicate that he was growing fond of her. With a confident smile, she rose from her seat, ready for another round of tea with the Duke. When Camilla arrived for tea, she was surprised to see Ravi there as well, since he wasn't usually one to insist on such gatherings. Ravi greeted her with a warm smile, and Camilla, though polite, couldn't help but feel irritated, wondering why he couldn't be this pleasant when they were alone. She noted that Ravi seemed unusually cheerful, prompting her to think that something positive must have happened. As she sat down, Ravi revealed to the Duke that he would be presenting his thesis at the annual Mage Conference. Camilla realized that being chosen for this prestigious event meant Ravi was among the elite mages, explaining his bright demeanor. As Camilla anticipated, the news came swiftly. A man burst into the room announcing that Lord Leadville had just achieved a significant victory by discovering and destroying the rebels' hideout. He had even devised the plan himself. The Duke was ecstatic, springing up in delight while Ravi's face fell with disappointment. The man continued, explaining that the victory had been reported to the imperial family, who were thrilled and had sent a personal letter to Lord Leadville. The Duke's joyous laughter filled the room, highlighting his pride. Camilla, observing Ravi's dejected expression, reflected on his misfortune. She realized that this grand achievement would overshadow Ravi's upcoming presentation, as the Duke was likely to celebrate Leadville's triumph with a victory party on the same day. Ravi, visibly upset, quickly excused himself, saying he had just remembered something urgent. Camilla, sensing the tension, also requested to be excused. The Duke, distracted by his own excitement, barely acknowledged their departure, cheerfully agreeing to see them later. He continued, brimming with happiness, announcing his plans to hold a grand festival to celebrate Lord Leadville's return and victory. As Ravi walked away, frustrated and disheartened, he thought about how he had invested so much time and research only to be overshadowed. He regretted not learning battle magic, feeling overshadowed by the recent victory of Lord Leadville. Camilla, noticing his mood, tried to offer some encouragement. She told him she was impressed by his upcoming presentation at the Mage Tower and that only the most prominent mages were selected for such an honor. Ravi, initially skeptical, was taken aback by her genuine praise. As Camilla patted him on the shoulder and stepped away, Ravi was struck by her unexpected kindness. He wondered why she had suddenly become so supportive, reflecting on how he had longed to hear such words from his father.